Hi, my name is Kimberly Cockwell, and I am a content design specialist for New Tech Network. My role has been in developing projects for the curriculum frameworks that you can find in the New Tech Help Center. I want to walk you through an example of a project that I have tweaked and adapted to support virtual learning, as well as fostering the conditions of deeper learning that we believe all students can do in and outside of a classroom. We believe that you as educators will need to tweak these projects to best fit the needs of your students. As you are going through this video with me, I'd love for you to jot down any questions and ideas that come to you in your mind and help us inform us of how we can continue to support you as you navigate digital learning. So the project that I chose to recreate is a first grade project called A Space for Mindfulness. I decided to choose this project from our curriculum frameworks because it was the first project of the year, and I deeply believe that establishing a strong culture with your students is essential. So I started with diving in to each of the components of the toolkit, paying close attention to the duration that the project was originally prototyped for, as well as the standards and learning outcomes. What I knew right off the bat was that any learning done virtually as a project would definitely not, for a first grader, be feasible for 5 weeks. That being said, I knew that I would have to tweak down this project to half of the time or less. Since I was taking the project timeline down, I knew I would then also have to condense the subject areas and the learning outcomes that I would be supporting. So with that, I made a copy of the entire presentation of the Google Slides. And from there, I started modifying. So you'll see within the project planning toolkit that I modified, I made my duration about a 1 to 2 week project. Truly in the project calendar, it's about 2 weeks with 2 days of reflection of both the student and teacher. I also, like I mentioned, condensed the standards down. And how I did that was I took a look at the scenario as well as the written performance task and culminating products. In the original project, the culminating products called for a classroom mindfulness space, as well as an individual feelings journal and a whole class mindfulness book. These were products that I thought could easily be done virtually. However, I did modify, instead of creating a classroom mindfulness space, students could create a home mindfulness space or a sensory box to support them with mindfulness. And instead of a physical mindfulness book, my students in my virtual class will be creating a digital ebook collaboratively. So from there, once I knew what my products were, and I knew that I was engaging about a 1 to 2 week project, I then went through and looked at my standards to think through what I could actually feasibly teach virtually and teach well virtually with those products in mind. And so with that, I decided to keep the ELA standards, the social studies standards, as well as the teaching tolerance standards. What I took out was the math standards that in the project was originally utilized to measure classroom spaces and give surveys to help support the classroom mindfulness space. So once I had the standards in mind and I knew the products that I would be creating, I then went through the create the path. I thought through backwards planning what the culminating products would be and then how many weeks I had. The original project called for 3 benchmarks, and I lowered the virtual one down to 2. How I did that was I took out the scaffolding and assessment and benchmarks that did not support the desired products that I had in mind for this virtual project. So with that thinking in mind, Once again, lower down the benchmarks. And then from there, I started to go through each of the scaffolds that had links provided, and I modified those for virtual learning. So in all of our curriculum frameworks, you will find that there are links to learner-centered practices, culture practices, and templates that we have provided to help support you in your own design and facilitation.
Here is an example of a virtual morning meeting. We put together some learning targets and facilitation notes to support you in the process of that. We also have curated for you some examples of virtual slides to support the facilitation of that morning meeting. You'll notice within the slides there's going to be similar structures such as the morning meeting agenda, providing sentence frames to support discourse and dialogue, as well as leveraging nonverbal communication such as sign language. All the while promoting and engaging rituals and routines to support the culture within your virtual classroom. Another example we've curated for you is a written performance task. We put together a virtual lesson plan to help support specific end-to-end learning outcomes and standards aligned to the product of your written performance task. Within this lesson plan, you'll also notice there are learner-centered practices as well as assessment practices to support those processes. With this lesson plan, we have also put together an example of what virtual slides might look like to support your students through that written performance lesson.
So those were some of the processes that I went through in modifying a project planning toolkit. Once again, I look through each of the phases. I condensed the duration of the project, and in doing so, had to condense the standards and making sure that I didn't have too many learning outcomes that I would need to scaffold in my project. I took a look at the products that were in the original project, and I modified them to support products in a virtual landscape. I then went through, once again, the benchmarks and scaffolds and condensed those down to align with the products that I had chosen. And from all there, that then informed what my day-to-days might look like, as well as modifying lessons for each of those days. All of these tips and processes I've curated in one of the slides for you to utilize. I followed the project design quality checklist as a template. And I also have linked in here resources that you can utilize, such as this virtual learning hub in our new tech network learning help center. And once again, if you are using Echo Help Desk is a great place if you want to think through how you might utilize agendas, choice folders, and discussion boards to help engage in active learning. And last but not least, our new tech network community Slack is a really great place for you to share and learn from others about ways that they are supporting virtual learning, as well as posting your own questions to gain some expertise and leverage our network in supporting your work, especially during this complex and challenging time. Thank you for listening in, and once again, best wishes.